We are the board. We're missing one of our heroes tonight. Jane's out of town. But we've got Adriana, Kate, Margaret. We've got Miss Pam, folks with the most over there. And we're going to get through the slideshow a little bit really quick because most of y'all know this already, and we don't want to bore you because I don't have many new jokes. Adriana, do you want to share a little bit?
Sure. Our mission is to engage and empower professionals by creating a vibrant space where we offer opportunities to grow their potential, network, gain visibility, and give back to the community. Our vision is to be impactful, relevant, and as economic, social, and civic leaders in the community. We really want to thank you all for joining us, and I want to thank USB, one of our newest trustees. As part of their consistent support is really what guided us to where we are today.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you to USB. Brand new, that's new news. So we should get a round of applause for that new. Thank you to our platinum sponsor and host, Mega Workplace. Molly will get you acquainted with the building. There'll be more to come for that. This is a place for resources. I don't know if you want to talk about the building at all, Ms. Pam. I feel like this group knows you well, which is convenient. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. If you don't know, we're a subsidiary of the Eustis Chamber of Commerce, and we'll share about more events that they have going on coming up. Also, Ms. Pam is their Chamber Board President. If you have any questions for that or inquiries about joining the Eustis Chamber, you're in the right place too. Catering provided by Lindo's Catering. I think it's the best caterer in the county. I don't know where Rose went. I've used several. Thank you, Rose and Chef Craig. So Leslie Mizrak, who's that? Leslie's new to the area, but she's here, she's local, and we're very lucky to have her because she's strong in her space, I think. And she has a coaching group. It's called?
Our podcast called Coaching in the Cuppa.
Coaching in the Cuppa, yeah.
I talk to other coaches.
Okay, which sounds like some good free content we could, good self-help. If you get two coaches in a room, that's like getting two magicians on a stage, right? So that's a lot of tricks. Okay. So Leslie's an executive coach, and her motto is "Life too short not to have fun." So with that, here's Leslie Mizrak.
Thank you so much. May I have the clicker?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Almost.
No control freak here. How's everybody doing? Good. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, imposter syndrome. So we'll dive into it for just a little bit. We'll have time for Q&A at the end, but I'll also ask Monty if he will send out an email, or the group will send out an email with some information afterwards. That way you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. On the very last screen, there is a QR code where you can download the resources for tonight, and you can have at them. Woo! You are welcome to use them, okay? So, imposter syndrome. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. My daughter and I work together. We're mother-daughter executive coaches, and we work on leadership development. We work on confidence building, emotional intelligence, and we work with business owners and leaders at all levels, but organizations that really want to develop their skill set. They want to be seen as the leader they desire to be seen as, and it takes work, right? And as I said, there'll be a QR code at the end, and sorry, my font decided to break itself. But there will be a QR code that will have all the resources that you can download and use for yourself as much as you would like. So imposter syndrome, what is it anyway? Imposter syndrome doesn't really have a super strong psychological definition, but it shows up in things like doubting yourself. Has anybody ever had a little self-doubt? Yeah, most of us have, right? Feeling like a fraud. Ooh, somebody is going to figure out that I do not know what I'm talking about one day, or I don't know how to do this. Right? It shows up in a lot of different ways. Doubting your abilities, even though you may have done the job for a long time, it shows up in a lot of different ways. And this is what we're calling imposter syndrome. Now, the idea of imposter syndrome is not new. It has been around for quite a long time. But the last few years of things social media, you're seeing a lot of people talking about it. So there's more and more conversations around imposterism, imposter syndrome, and it has really entered our ongoing dialogue. It's entered the conversation in many different ways, whether it's corporate leaders talking about themselves or potentially the confidence of their teams, or if it's someone on the street feeling nervous about something. The thing is, studies show that about 70% of us have experienced some sort of imposter syndrome at some point in time. How do you feel about that number? Surprised? Think it's low, it should be lower, higher? What are your thoughts?
It should be higher.
You think higher?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Probably most of us have at some point had this feeling. But that said, it shows up in the most interesting ways. And the reason I'm talking about it as an executive coach, a phenomenon happened for me. My very first client when I started my business, an amazing person, had been in the Marines, had a very high-level role, and a very large organization, and he was looking for a coach, and we started talking, and he's like, I feel like someday somebody's going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing. But they kept elevating him in position up through C-suite. And he's like, I just need to, how do I work through this? So that was my first real experience thinking that an executive might have imposter syndrome, might have lower confidence. Well, I will tell you, I see it in almost every client in one way, shape, or form, no matter who I'm working with. So I see it all the time, which is why we decided to start talking about confidence and the imposter syndrome more, right? Really being very overt, where people can see themselves. Now, quite frequently, we see it in a lot of different situations. It can be starting a new job, it can be starting a new company, going out on your own, needing to learn something new. Sometimes it's a little scary to learn a new skill. You ever had something to learn and felt a little scary? Am I going to get it? Does it make sense? That sort of thing, right? Purchasing a business, new process, leaving jobs. There's so many different situations in which it tends to show up. But that said, imposter syndrome in and of itself may not actually be a bad thing. There's some really interesting research out there. I'm gonna step out of the frame for just a minute and read a story to you. May I read a short story to you?
Please.
I find this really interesting. And it comes from the book Think Again. It's a little bit of a controversial book, I think. If you read it, you might be surprised by what you see. But Adam Grant talks about the fact that there might be some upsides to imposter syndrome. It may not be all bad. Okay? So, he was talking with Basima Tufik. She was a doctoral student at Wharton at the time and started doing some research. She's now an MIT professor. She recruited a group of medical students who were preparing to begin their clinical rotations. She had them interact for a half an hour with actors who had been trained to play the role of patients presenting symptoms of various diseases. Basima observed how the medical students treated the patients and also tracked whether or not they made the right diagnosis. Well, a week earlier, the students had answered a survey about how often they entertain imposter thoughts like, I'm not as qualified as others think I am, and people important to me think I'm more capable than I think I am. Those who self-identified as imposters didn't do any worse in their diagnosis. They actually did better. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. They actually did significantly better when it came to things like bedside manner. They were rated as more empathetic, more respectful, more professional, as well as effective in asking questions and sharing information. And in another study, Basima found a similar pattern with investment professionals. The more often they felt like imposters, the higher their performance reviews from supervisors were. Isn't that surprising information? Yeah, so that leads us to be able to think about, sometimes it makes us work harder, it makes us work smarter, and it might make us better learners because we're engaging differently, right? The confidence is not there as someone who might be so confident where they're disengaging, right? We probably all experienced that at some point in our lives, and if you haven't, you probably will. Somebody who believes they know everything, right? That's a few giggles in the room, right? So that said, there can be an upside to imposter syndrome. So it's not all bad. It's okay to have those thoughts sometimes. The problem becomes when it's debilitating, when it stops you in your tracks, when it keeps you from moving forward, when you can't process or think other things. So there's a bit of a spectrum there. There's probably a point when someone needs to not be working with a coach and probably go with a psychologist or a therapist to really figure out what's happening behind those thoughts, what those triggers might be. But that said, that's for everybody to figure out. But since you're here today, nobody twisted your arm, I don't think, right? Right? Okay, good. Since you're here today, you probably know there are some downsides too, because it can show up in how we put ourselves out there or how we hold ourselves back. So, heard of perfectionism? Any perfectionists in the room? Yeah, perfectionism is a tough one. It keeps you from moving forward. Because is there such thing as perfect?
No.
No, there is no such thing as perfect. And so that's something that really holds us back. I don't even know how to say the second one. Achyphobia, however you say that one. That's that fear of failure. Right? Thank you so much. Denial of achievements can show up. Superheroism. And then that fear of being successful, the achievemophobia. So these are some things that could show up in that imposter syndrome space. But the thing is, it's not all black and white. There is so much gray, purple, pink, red, blue, green, all the different colors. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's how do I work through it? How do I leverage it? How do I use it? How do I learn from it? How do I grow through it? Right? Instead of being paralyzed, how do I actually start to embrace it and move forward? How are we doing?
Good.
Switch hands without making the mic too much mic noise. So, thing is, imposter syndrome is not limited to the workplace. Anybody have children in this room? Hands up if you have kids. Okay. Any moms or dads out there? You ever think that somebody's going to figure out you have no idea what you're doing parenting? Right? Right? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm winging it. I'm figuring it out. So it doesn't just happen in the workplace. It doesn't happen in the corporate. It doesn't happen just in our businesses. It can happen in all the different facets or components of our lives. So, we good? Cool. It can also show up in things like sometimes I don't belong here. I don't fit in. That's a tough one, isn't it? When you feel like you don't belong, right? That can be showing up as an imposter. I don't know enough yet. Close to that perfectionism. I don't have all the information. Everyone here has way more experience than I have. Or they've been doing this longer than I have. Or they've been coming to these meetings for longer than I'm new here. Nobody wants to talk to me. All the different things, the stories that we tell ourselves. Because our brain is so highly capable of making stuff up. Do you know your brain's really good at making stuff up? If we weren't on video, I'd use a different word. But our brain is so gifted at doing that. And even things like, oh, I know I failed the exam. I know I didn't pass. Those sorts of things. What I'd like you to think about is what stories you're telling yourselves. Right? Are those stories personal? Are they in your personal realm? Are they in your professional realm? What stories are you telling yourself? You want to take just a quick second and write a note of what stories. I'm not going to ask you to share out loud. But if you have stories that you're telling yourself, make yourself a note. So the next question is really around the emotion of that story you're telling yourself. How do you feel? How does that story make you feel? Are there any emotions that bubble up for you? Does anybody have something they'd like to share? You don't have to tell your story, but is there an emotion behind that story? No? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So for me, I guess the root of my story is, I don't know, my mom's loud. Oh, okay, for the recording. I think what emotion comes up for me is just doubt. As a fairly new full-time entrepreneur, I've been in my business full-time for 2 years. Sometimes I have withdrawal from direct deposit. And yeah, just missing those consistent direct deposits. So sometimes when I think about my business and being a full-time entrepreneur, I get these moments of doubt because I'm like, okay, am I going to be able to sustain myself long-term with my current business model? That imposter syndrome, it keeps in on everybody. And so I have those moments where I have to coach myself.
And there's nothing wrong with that. We should all learn how to coach ourselves and be able to talk to ourselves and ask ourselves the questions that get us out of our head, get us out of that emotional space. Right? And so asking the questions, yes ma'am, what about emotion for you?
I think for myself, I try to be mindful and not become overwhelmed. Because I have a tendency to do so much at one time. And I'm like, okay, you can achieve it, but just little steps are big steps.
Baby steps, momentum. That's what happens when we take those little steps. They create the bigger steps, right? It's when we've stopped in that perfectionism or whatever it is that's holding us tight right here. That's what keeps us from moving forward. But it can be those little baby steps, questioning yourself, asking yourself. Those steps can really help to move yourself forward and create momentum. Do you have something you want to say?
Sure.
Okay, go for it.
Can you go back one?
I can.
I think it was one. Go back one more.
What if my client already knows this stuff?
Yeah.
We didn't mention that. And
Didn't.
that's is what I do.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No,
Oh,
sorry. Mom should hear you.
okay, thank you. That's unusual for me. You guys all know me. I said, the question is, what if my client already knows this stuff? And with what I do, there's this element of it. In honesty and integrity within myself and when I'm talking with people is extremely important to me.
Sure.
It's part of why I left the former field I was in, because I just dealt with so many people in my field that were ingenuous and just didn't tell the truth. With what I do and why I came back to what I do is because it is my passion. And I heard something yesterday that really was profound. They said, not what interests you. Don't do what interests you. Do what you're obsessed with. Okay? And that really was profound for me. And it hit me, yeah.
I love that. I think the thing, so both of us are in the coaching space, the thing a true coach does is they're not teaching anybody anything. They actually know the information. It's finding it inside and bringing it forward. And that's one of those, your clients do know it, they just don't know they know it. And that's what makes it really interesting. So thank you for bringing that back around. So quite often when we're telling ourselves a story, or we're in this self-doubt space, or feeling a bit like an imposter, there's emotions attached to it. And it can be all sorts of different emotions, from anxiety, the doubt, to fear, to just stopping you in your tracks, sadness. There's so many different emotions that can happen. The opportunity is to understand how we get in this vicious cycle. Really interesting book called The Expectation Effect, if that's something you're interested in reading a little bit more. And when we say and believe things, they start to become real, right? So, imposter syndrome, or this imposterism, can come from so many different places. Anybody have a twin sister or brother in the room? Anybody have a twin? No? Quite often, the imposterism, that syndrome, whatever, can be rooted in life experiences that we've had. It can be rooted in things like social media. It can be rooted in our histories, our values, the mental health that we deal with, and we all have mental health, right? It's how we manage it, how we leverage it, how we talk about it. But the thing is, you can have twins. I've got identical twin sisters, and they had the same childhood growing up till probably 16, 17 years old, where they started to become a little bit more their own lives at that space. One very confident, one not as confident, right? So it doesn't play a whole piece of it. There's a lot that goes into how we feel about ourselves and how we sit in self-doubt. So it's not the whole story, that upbringing, that genetics, but can be a piece of it. Are there people out there who are faking it? Yes, they are. There are so many people out there that are faking it, that they act like they've got so much confidence, that they know everything. Quite often, those are the people that I'm more concerned about than someone who has a little bit of imposter syndrome or doesn't have the confidence. Because that person that has the imposter syndrome or that wants to develop their confidence, they're not moving forward. That person that's so stuck in knowing everything, always being right, they're a bigger challenge, because quite often that's where the pushback's going to happen, that's where the mistakes happen, that's where so much negative cultural energy happens in organizations. And you've probably all experienced, I've seen some heads shaking in the room, we've probably seen that. But we know that's not about you. So the imposter syndrome says, I don't know what I'm doing, it's only a matter of time until somebody figures it out. But the growth mindset, if we can start to switch our thinking just a little bit, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. Don't you like that? I don't know what I'm doing yet. It's only a matter of time till I figure it out. But that's that forward movement. When we're stuck in imposter syndrome, we're in a fixed mindset if we're not moving forward or pushing through. So I want to give you some tools to help push through. On your piece of paper, if you'll write down just somewhere on the piece of paper, what goal is imposter syndrome holding you back from? Or that little bit of self-doubt. Is there something, and it may not be for everybody, is there something that's holding you back? And then those that have people that work for them, that are people leaders, how might it be holding your team back, your peers back, your employees back, right? Where are you seeing that self-doubt? You might have an employee, and I see this quite a bit, and I've got an employee who's phenomenal. A leader will tell me this. We'll have conversations around how they might develop that employee, some things they might do. This employee has such high potential. They are so gifted, but they're afraid to try something new. We'll start to have conversations on ways they can develop that employee. So this is not just about you individually. It could also be someone in your world, professional, personal, kid, grandkid, doesn't matter. Sister, brother. So think about what goal might be holding you back. Make yourself a quick note. Are you ready to open the toolkit? Ready to do this? Okay. I've got some strategies that you can use for yourself, but also use for your teams, with employees, with peers, those sorts of things. So, as I said, it's a QR code you're going to get at the end. You can download everything and use the tools for yourself, but also you're welcome to share them out. Okay, so first of all, knowing I'm not alone. We already know that the statistics said 70% of people have imposter at some point have felt like an imposter, right? And most everybody in this room shook their head. So yeah, that's been me in some way, shape, or form, right? So knowing you're not alone is the first step. How does that make you feel, knowing you're not alone? Make you feel better? Yeah, it's like, it'll be okay. I could do this, okay? Promoting open communication. We'll talk about safety in just a moment, but promoting open communication, having dialogue. It can be even you, if you're the leader, for example, or a project manager, project lead, whatever that is, if you're feeling it, if you feel comfortable to say, you know what, I'm experiencing this. Any thoughts? How do you guys, have you ever experienced it? What do you do about it? Right? Open communication, talking about things, creating environments to where it's safe for people to step into real dialogue. Because it's the real dialogue where we learn and we grow. Do you agree? Yeah, the real conversations. So this is the one, it's one of my favorites. Anybody ever heard of psychological safety? Doris, I know you have. Yep, that psychological safety. I'm also going to say psychological bravery. Because I use psychological bravery. I can't guarantee that an employee is going to be safe if they go have a difficult conversation with their boss. Right? If I'm working with an employee, if I'm working with a customer, I can't guarantee that their boss is going to actually create an environment where things are safe. They're not going to use it against them. So I use bravery. Let's just kind of give a point of reference. But if you're a people leader, or you're in a situation, a project leader, that sort of thing, if you're in a situation to where you're working with, or other people are working for you, to create an environment of psychological safety. A place where it's okay to come and say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I need information. I need help. I'm feeling like somebody's going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing. But that's leadership right there. That's not managing. That's leadership, where you're bringing other people along. Okay? Creating an environment of confidence. Now realize that it's different for all of us. It's different for men or women. It's different for white people and people of color. It's different for people of different cultures, different ages. So just because you think you're creating a safe place doesn't mean that other people feel safe. Right? And you can think you're doing this. What happens as you can start to create more dialogue and be open and real and authentic with someone, that safety will start to grow, hopefully, where they feel like they belong, where they feel like they're included, where they're a part of the team. Because if we want people to grow and we want them to be successful and produce, ourselves included, that's really important. Yes, ma'am.
I actually find
That's so true what you mentioned there, because our intent may be well, but if a person don't feel safe with us, then they're not going to build that rapport enough to interact and trust you for what you're doing with them. I found that a lot with youth that have some behavior issues. You know, I'm coming in, but I'm saying the delivery as well, but they're still looking at me with that questionable look. And until I build that rapport with them, then we can move forward and get some real action behind what we want. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and this is a different topic, but that comes down to creating a trusting environment, a place of trust. And it takes time for trust to grow. Trust is that's a couple of days to sit and talk about trust. But that said, that's what a good leader does, is create that environment. And leadership is not about position. It's about how you influence others, how you bring other people along. Because I would bet for all of you in an organization you're either in now or have been in the past, there was somebody in that organization that you would follow, even if they didn't have the title or the corner office. Like if they tell you what restaurant, a restaurant that's really great to go to, they're like, this person says I need to go to this restaurant, I'm totally going to do it. But if there's somebody there's not trust, they're like, oh no, I'm not doing that, right? So understanding that it's different for all of us. Oh gosh, our words have such power. Our words have meaning, and our words are more than just our words. It's how we say the words. It's the cadence. It's the tone. It's the body language. Did anybody ever say yes, but they're shaking their head no to you? Right? They're telling you two different stories. You got to figure out what that looks like. Okay? So understanding that our words have power, but our words have power even when we're saying them to ourselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to apply for this job, or I'm not going to go after that customer because I'm not good enough. Right? Anybody ever said anything like that before? They're not going to like me, right? The stories we create, oddly enough, your brain is hearing that. And it doesn't know what's just talk and what's real. It hears the words. And there's a lot of research out there. So think about the words you're telling yourselves and the words you're telling others. Words matter. And now I got some Toastmasters in the room. Words matter, do they not, Toastmasters? They totally do. Share your stories. I alluded to this a little bit earlier. Share your stories. Normalize it. Make it real. If 70% of the population has dealt with imposterism, then chances are the person across the table has. If somebody says, have you ever felt like you weren't good enough, or have you ever had self-doubt? Be real if you feel safe. Because we can start to normalize this and not make it a bad word. Just make it a real word. Okay. For those that are people leaders or people peers, help people think about maybe how they grow through things. Professional development. Even things like this tonight is professional development, is it not? Yeah. Right. It's all about growth. Conversations with others, sitting in workshops, reading books, watching a webinar, listening to a book summary, listening to a podcast, whatever those things can be professional development that's going to get triggered. Something can show up and be like, oh, that's a great idea, I want to try this. Went to a networking meeting yesterday, and I've had my business for 10 years. Went to this networking meeting yesterday, and we were working on a topic around marketing. And we were talking about proposals and that sort of thing. And we had an idea right at the table to try something we hadn't done before and do it in a different way around providing proposals to the client. It was so cool just to be at this networking meeting and have this conversation. That was a moment of aha, right? Those aha moments can happen in all sorts of different ways and can make us grow. Encourage goal setting and tracking, right? If we are not paying attention to our goals and then tracking our momentum and success, are we really moving forward? Does our brain know? Is our brain connecting the dots? So make sure that we are thinking about what goals we want to set and how we move forward, and then how we track them. Because again, those baby steps that I heard about right over here, those baby steps create momentum, those little small steps. Okay. First of all, how are we doing? Are we good? Haven't put you to sleep yet? No? Okay, cool. I've got 3 exercises. Now, everybody has a worksheet in front of them, correct? Can I hold yours up for just a moment? What I've done is I've created kind of a small version of the 3 sets of worksheets that are in the QR code that you're going to get at the end. Okay, so we're going to go through these little by little and let you just experience them. Okay. So the first one, looking for evidence of achievements. Okay? I call this the achievement inventory. An inventory of the achievements you've done. Everybody has had achievements in this room, have you not?
Yeah.
Right? Little, big, you've had all sorts of different achievements, and it might feel different for each of you. So, starting an achievement inventory. Think about gathering the following items, like your calendar, the meetings you've had, the projects you've been on, the products that you've recommended, those sorts of things. You start to build your list of the things you've done. Then you seek out the highlights. Okay, describe that achievement. What's the impact of that achievement? And that's quite one thing, the thing that people miss quite a bit is the impact. Right? You might say, I did X, Y, Z. I led this project. I completed my purchase on June 1st, whatever that is. But if we can go deeper and think about what's the impact, How did I impact myself? How did I impact my organization? How did I impact my team? How did I impact my group, my business? Whatever that is, think about the impact of those achievements. But then also, the next piece are what are the skills learned? What are the skills used? Really taking it further so that your brain and you are connecting the dots to the things you've done, the impact, and then what you've learned or skills that you used. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll be the first to break the ice on this one. Well, something you just said that's very important, I think, is so many of us are involved in so many different activities locally. You know, this event, 1 Million Cups, Fast Track, Toastmasters, so many of those things that we are involved in, and then some of the people that are real estate agents, they have those events, and those that are involved in the Realtors Association and all those things, and you get involved in all these different activities. And that's a key thing, I think, to put on there. That's an achievement.
That's totally an achievement.
It is.
right?
It really is. You know, you get to the end of your week and you think, "What have I done this week?" Well, that's a big part of it for some of us. I mean, you know, there's other things too, but at least for me, I had not thought to check that box in that achievement.
Of course.
You know, I've
So
attended
it's not
those things.
just the achievement of being in the group, what are you giving to
What
the
do-
group?
right, what are you
right?
contributing and-
How are you
right.
contributing? What
Mm.
successes are you having? What
Right.
impact? How are you touching others? I don't mean physically touching with your hand.
Right.
But how are you touching
Well,
and impact? Yeah. You go for it. But it's really important to be thinking about that.
And I also, if you have employees, I also encourage people in all different levels of organizations that have performance management programs or that do performance reviews to keep a tracker going. Because man, it is tough if you're at the end of the mid-year point or the end of the year and you're like, I don't know what I've done, right? If you constantly work on your tracker and documenting, you are going to be so much more successful at the end of that performance cycle and be like, oh, I got this, right? I know what I can go talk to my boss about. I know what I can go talk with my team about. Yes, sir.
This is a question for you, Leslie.
Okay.
As you're giving this talk tonight, how will you measure the impact that you've had on us?
So the impact can be the impact on you. Oh, I love that. That's a great question. For me, it'll be who downloads the information, right? To see if there was any interest. Okay, lets me know if I hit home. The comments I might get, right? But Leslie, that was awesome, or Leslie, that wasn't so good. Whatever that is, I'm open to real information, right? So it's paying attention, and then further down the road, what people do with it. Because quite often when I do this talk, I'll get a call in a month or two, or an email or a text or something, and say, I used this and it works, or I did this and it worked. I made a safe place for my employee who I felt like wasn't very confident to have a real conversation. So it all comes back to kind of engagement for me. Does
Okay.
that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
That was
cool.
it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good question. Thank you for that. Right? But your impact is going to be different for all of you. Right? It might be finishing a project on time. It might be getting attendance increased. It might be hitting your goals at Toastmasters. Whatever those things are, getting your business started. Right? Whatever those things are. It could be, hitting a profit to where you're not so much worried about that direct deposit anymore. And if you're in the business development world, it could be getting the monies into your organization that you need. It could be selling the number of houses you want to create to get your income goals. It's different for all of you. So think about what you want your impact to be or what your impact really is. Great question. Thank you. Okay, can anybody see themselves using this? I mean, it doesn't have to be this form. It can be just thinking about achievements.
Can I make a comment on this?
Yes, please.
I think one of the-
I'm coming.
oh, I-
Yeah, we gotta hear you too.
I just think when I look out in this room, I see a lot of incredible people that I know, and they do great things. I think one of the important things in our role in going through our careers and our life is to always have a mentor. then that's the person who can counteract that feelings that we have, or maybe the things that we tell ourselves. Because sometimes we have to draw the belief from ourselves, from somebody else, from God, from the journey that we've walked so far, and know that it's a journey and that we're not a ride. But I feel mentorships in our lives are so important because that can keep that different perspective coming towards us.
I agree 100%. How many of you have a mentor? Yeah, it's phenomenal. How many of you are mentors? I find that those that are mentors get much more out of the mentor relationship than maybe even the mentee, right? That reverse mentoring is really powerful. Yeah, mentoring is huge. Okay, that's the achievement inventory. Next, we need to think about what it is we bring to the table. What are our gifts? What are our skills? What do we bring? Every one of us has magnificent gifts and presents that we bring to the table. Do you know that? Do you believe that about yourself? Yeah. And if you don't, I bet you could ask somebody that's close to you and say, what do I bring to the table? Why do you want to work with me? Why does working together work for you? That sort of thing. If you don't see it yourself, ask the question. So I like the next one, which is the asset inventory. And we're only going to do one question on this one, but it's 2 pages, and I believe it's 10 questions. But the first one starts off as, what do you feel like your 3 greatest strengths are? Go ahead and take a moment and write down your 3 strengths, or at least one strength that you feel like you have. Right? This is where you're starting to think about yourself and what you bring to the table. What assets that you have to share with others. Be it mentorship, be it leadership, be it being a terrific worker. What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to your business, your team? Does anybody have a strength they'd like to share?
I feel like I'm intentional.
Okay.
Oh, you took mine.
Let's say that. Ah! Okay.
I feel like I'm intentional.
Okay, what does intentional mean to you? Tell me about that.
Intentional is asking questions with a purpose,
Okay.
right? Finding whether that is goal setting for my employees, knowing exactly where they want to be in 5 years, how do we get you there, making plans. When it's with customers, intentional questions to understand their business, to make a connection, to help them get an answer. So intentional in the initiatives that I serve. So that's kind of my word.
Intentionality is a great one. So thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you. Does anybody else have one they'd like to share? Alan, do I see your hand? Doris, I'll come right back to you. Okay, Doris, you're up.
Yeah, I want to share.
I had a tie here.
Oh, it's hot. She got a tie. Oh, it's a tiebreaker.
Well, the one I will share is my tenacity.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's one of my strengths. I'm one of those people that I bend but I don't break. If my back's up against the wall, I come out fighting, but I don't give up. I'm not easily offended. I'm not easily discouraged. And so I think my tenacity really, just being tenacious and willing to go after. I experience doubt, but it doesn't quite stop me. Like, it's just a thought,
Right.
and then I just do it anyway. Like,
And that's exactly it, right? It's not holding you back, but it's still there. Yeah, they pop in, they move on out, right? You deal with it. Anyone else? Go for it, Al.
I've got 2 things that I want to say, and I'm going to choose one, and I think that would be, and I really didn't write this down, but the reality is I lead with my heart. I lead with my heart. People that really know me, it's the way God wired me. It took me years to come to grips with, that's just the way I am. I feel if I like you, if I care about you, you're going to know it, because I can't stand behind. It just overflows, it effervescence out of me. And I believe that's because of what I see as my close connection to my spiritual being, and that I've cultivated over the years, and it's been there, that, I really believe in the Christ consciousness and living in Christ and being in that spirit and place and seeing that in others.
So, what's in your heart? Love that. about thinking about who we are, what we bring to the table, what our gifts are. And again, there's other questions. What unusual skills do you have? What's a challenge that you overcame? Questions that can really take you down the path to think about how you've overcome, right? How you've dealt with being an imposter, how you actually bring something amazing to the table, and all of us do. And then the third one is quite often the imposter syndrome or imposterism stops us. Any procrastinators in the room? Come on, I'm not the only one, am I? I'm just a procrastinator in general, and this is the tool that helps me. But that said, quite often when someone is kind of stuck in that self-doubt space, it's feeling like procrastination. Sometimes it's perfectionism. Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
Sometimes it's perfectionism.
Yeah.
And so the focus wheel is the third tool that we put together to get people to think about what their, get to the right page, I don't have my pants. To get to what their goal is and to think about what they want to do. So it's about putting your goal in the center and then writing statements around the goal. So for example, it has information on the front page and then the second page as an example that you can use, right? So use tools that will help you to move forward. What is your goal? And then write statements around that goal to help you move forward, to help you get focused and out of that rut that we get stuck in when we're in procrastination mode. So these are tools that you can use them all. You can use them individually. You can use them with your team, whatever that looks like. And if something doesn't feel like a tool that makes sense for you, don't use it, right? This is not a requirement. But think about if it helps you and if it doesn't. When you think about your focus wheel, can it help with accountability, do you believe? Right? Thinking about a goal, what do I need to do to achieve that goal? What happens is we start to get stuck out of our heads. Because is your head busy up there? Is your head busy? Yeah, there's a lot happening up there. It's a party up there. Is that what you just said? I love that. There's a party up there, right? There's a lot happening in our brains. So if we can start to put things down on paper, and it could be electronic paper, right? It doesn't have to be physical paper. Whatever works for you, you don't even have to use these. But that said, if we could start to create a space where we're getting it out of up here, it starts to change the game for us. I love paper. I'm a very old school. I'm on my computer probably 10 hours a day, but I also love paper, and I doodle and draw and make notes, and there's paper everywhere. But that said, there are times when I don't have paper around me, and I'll be texting myself. Do you text yourself? Or do you use, you keep a notepad? Yeah, I have notepads. They're always in my purse, but sometimes it's just easier to text myself.
Yeah, I use Notepad.
Yeah, a notepad on the phone, love that. Yeah, I text myself, I'll email myself. There's all sorts of different tools. There's a great Google Keep. If you use Gmail, the Google Keep is amazing for kind of tracking things. There's a lot of different ways to build in some self-accountability. Now, continuing on, recognition and reward, right? When we have those baby steps, when you have an employee that has those steps that moves forward, recognize and reward. And I don't mean fake reward. Thanks for coming to work today. I'm so proud of you, right? That's a fake reward. But when someone's been successful or you've been successful, recognize it and reward yourself. It doesn't have to be monetary reward. There's a lot of stuff out there that tells us monetary rewards don't work. They have a shelf life of about 15 minutes, and then somebody wants more. So think about what rewards work in different situations. But recognize for ourselves our achievements and recognize in others as well. How do you feel when you've been recognized for actually having done something? Feels good? What else? I heard some other words. No? Okay.
Yes.
Yes? It does feel good, right? And then lastly, build healthy and supportive networks. Whether it's like Pam over here was talking with Alan, like, yes, kind of commiserating, yes, you totally do lead with your heart, right? That's a network where people, you have community and they support each other. And it can be a community group like Lake County Professionals. It can be a, it could be a chamber group. It could be your Toastmasters group. It could be a work group. It could be a church group. It could be a family group. But that supportive network is so important because as humans, we're hardwired for connection. We are hardwired to not be alone. Any introverts in the room? Sometimes you just want to be alone, do you not? Sometimes you just want to be alone, right? That's not the same thing. You still need that connection. Quite often the only folks that may not need that connection probably have some brain disorders or brain dysfunction, right? Where that connection can be very difficult for them, right? They may not be able to connect. But for the majority of us, we are hardwired for it and we need it. And then, oh my gosh, recharge. It is okay to say, you know what, I need a minute. Somebody put on LinkedIn today something that looked kind of similar to this. It's say, I'm getting off LinkedIn, I need to recharge today. I'm okay, I'm just not going to be responding. It is okay to need a recharge because this brain's going like crazy. You're probably working quite a bit. There's a lot happening out there. And then create a diverse and inclusive environment. I'm not talking DEI. I'm talking a place where it is okay to be who you are. It is okay to include others, where it's not okay to disclude others, right? This is about understanding that our businesses grow, our teams are successful when we celebrate each other's differences, because if everybody was like me, remember I said I was a procrastinator, simultaneously a control freak, we wouldn't get anything done. Right? So understanding that I need people that are different from me around me. I need them for us to be successful. How does that feel? Agree? Anybody disagree? Right? This is not to be a political statement, it's to understand that we have an opportunity to really grow through and with others and learn from others. Remember I told you about my twin sisters? Two people that identical twins, you would think they would be so much alike, completely different people. But it works for them, right? They fed off of each other. They supported each other and celebrated each other's differences, but also the likenesses. So, imposter syndrome, this is an interesting book, but it's some old research. When research was first done on imposterism, imposter syndrome, it was primarily done, it was done in the 70s, and it was done with women. It was thought that only women had low confidence or had imposter syndrome early on. And remember how I said my client, one of my very first clients, former Marine, C-suite, big company, big job, same thing. So now they realize that it is everybody. It is not a female issue. It is a human issue. And it can happen at all ages. It can happen with young people, and it can happen with not so young people like me. And realize that confidence or competence are not the same at all. Somebody can have so much confidence that you think, okay, they're going to be so good at this, but they don't have the skill set or the competence to do. So understand the difference. I call it cocky and arrogance.
Yes.
But that said, understanding there's a difference between confidence and competence. You can have somebody that is confident and competent. I probably would want a surgeon that's confident that my surgery is going to be successful and has the competence to perform that. So I'm okay with both, but understanding you can have competence and not confidence, and you can have somebody that's got a lot of confidence but doesn't know what to do or doesn't know how to do the job. Right? Those are the hardest ones to work with.
I have a question
Yes.
on that one.
What would you say is the middle ground for self-critique and confidence?
Middle ground, tell me what that means to you. What's the middle ground between confidence and self-critiquing and?
So, for example,
Yeah, I'm gonna give you this.
Yeah, please. So he's on camera.
okay. I have it written down, but I'm building suspense.
Drum roll, please.
So basically, in a team environment, so maybe you've been there a while and others are watching you grow, even in a parental situation. So how are you building confidence in yourself and others while remaining humble and open-minded?
Yeah. Well, so that's a really good one. I encourage people to share their stories, but sharing their stories of successes does not have to be a me moment, right? It doesn't have to be all about me to where everybody else is discluded. But I think it's important for people to have that confidence and say, you know what, this is what I did today. This feels good. Can I share my story? Because someone's going to connect with that. So I think it is important to create that environment. Remember I said open communication, creating that environment of psychological safety or brave space.
How do you do that leading upward, though?
How do you do that? Well, I think it probably depends situational, right? So it's got to, I would have to know who your leadership is or who that person is. But if you're that leader, how do you encourage people to come with their stories? So something like the performance review cycle, if you come and say, bring your stories, I want to hear your successes, I want to hear your challenges, I want to hear what you learned, I want to hear the impact you made on the team, the organization, right? You can only lead yourself, and you can lead others, but you can't make your leader lead the way you want them to, right? You can only show up as the leader you want to be known as. So I think there's a fine line, and it's going to be different for all of us, between kind of that arrogance and self-aggrandizing than sharing our story. And it's going to be different for every single environment, every single team. I think wherever there's the safety. I know that's not the answer, because I can't give you a kind of a black and white answer.
I want to know how to spell self-aggrandizing.
I'll send you the spelling. Self-aggrandizing. Yes, ma'am. I'm coming back to you.
V-I-Z-I-N-G-E-R.
That was a good word. Word of the day.
When I worked in the UK and I was in education and also in practice that I've also run with kids for many years, is we have what went well, even better if. And we do that with a lot of things. We could do a little shopping trip. Say, what went well today in the UK? Oh, we got this. Well, what, you know what I mean? Even better if, well, if that guy hadn't taken the cart. You know what I mean? That we wanted. But we can apply that, we find, to any business situation. And if everybody has those questions answered, just 3 things for each one, it becomes so non-threatening.
Exactly.
You know, because you leave with management, oh, she's stuck.
So if you're actually looking at the attendee survey, that is 2 of the last questions were, what are we doing well and what can we do better?
Did you put that in?
Yes, I read the survey.
See, that was not self-aggrandizing, was it? Yes, I wrote the survey. That was not self-aggrandizing, was it? That was a fact.
It was
Right?
the way she said it.
No, she did not say, I wrote the survey. Oh, we're losing control, Facebook.
The Brits are here.
I just want to call out, I like the fact that you mentioned that it's different based off of environment. I know coming from the corporate space, it gets very interesting because it's a competitive environment. And really, if you're looking to advance your career, you have to have strong advocacy for yourself. It's a hard environment if you don't have the ability to tell your story, to and really walk that thin line between self-promotion and self-advocacy. And so how do you talk about your accomplishments, the way you contribute, the way that you develop others, or how you lead your team without coming across as arrogant and it's something that you really have to learn. Now, it's different if you're in a church environment, you know, because you're there to serve, and saying me may not get you anywhere. But really, I like that you mentioned that it's based off the environment. But I am a strong, yeah, it's very situational. But I am, I believe that as leaders, especially if there's goals that we want to accomplish or places that we want to go, we have to strike that balance between self-advocacy and self-promotion.
Right. And I think even, thank you, Doris. Doris is going to be your speaker in May.
That's
It's
right.
amazing. I think even we have the opportunities to celebrate our peers. If we're not the boss of the team, how do we say, you know what, I saw you do something amazing the other day. Tell us about it. What do you think the impact was? So start to develop that on project teams. You can step into being a leader without a title, right? All of us have an opportunity, whether it's in our church, our homes, our work, our communities, whatever those communities are, to show up as a leader. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I can have to do questions afterwards if you have any. But again, realize you're not alone. Promote that open communication dialogue. Create a safe place, a brave place. Pivot the language. Think about the words we're using, how we're using them. Normalize the experience of you're not alone. Man, I've had doubt. Before, when I started this job, I thought, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. Right? For new employees, it quite often takes 6 weeks to 3 months for them to fully get engaged in that job, because it could be new acronyms, it's new work, new culture. There's a lot of newness. It takes time. So there's a lot of self-doubt happens in new roles. Provide professional development. And again, it doesn't have to be expensive coaching. Doesn't have to be expensive training. It can be, we learn in so many different ways. Goal setting, tracking, recognizing and rewarding achievements, creating that community. Recharge those batteries. And then create an environment where it's okay to be who you are. That diverse and inclusive environment where it is okay to be you. It's a safe place to be you and be real. Bring your faults with you, your successes with you. We all have them because, again, we're not perfect. We're not perfect humans. So this is the QR code. It's going to take you, and you can take a picture if you want. The web address is gettalk.at/imposter-syndrome, or the QR code will take you there. It's going to ask for your email and name. I promise I'm not going to spam you, but that way you can download the resources. That way I can double check to make sure that you were able to access them. And there's also some other books and things that we like around imposterism or imposter syndrome. Again, there's the QR code and there's my email address if you want to take a picture. And I will ask Monty to follow up with a couple of bits. Are there any questions?
Really, that's Margaret, since we're giving credit.
What was that?
Margaret does the emails.
Okay, excellent, Margaret. I'm sending it to you then.
Since we're giving credit out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's how you do it right there.
All right.
Right, thank you so much. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
So I'm very analytical, so I don't move forward if I don't know enough. How would you say to overcome that?
So, Colin Powell, what was his position? Do you remember? Secretary of State. He had his team, if they were at 70 to 80% sure of something was going to be successful, that was their move forward point. Because he knew there was no 100% guarantee. So that 70 to 80% is a good starting point. Can we believe something is going to be successful and it fail? 100%. But the only way we're going to know it's going to fail is if we try it. We have to be sure about it, or as sure as possible, but not stuck waiting for 100% surety. Because there are so many variables that we may not have thought about that are going to keep something from being successful. So 70 to 80%. How do you feel about that? Is that a little scary?
I've aimed for about 95.
Okay, 95. Shoot for 80.
Down.
Let's move it down 15 points. Shoot for 80, okay? And that's like that you've given it the thought, you've looked at different scenarios, you've got a gut feeling, you've got a brain feeling, your heart's in it, whatever that is. Trust yourself, and that's hard. But it takes time, it takes doing it to be successful. You got this. Okay? Yeah. Any other questions? I'm really good at making up answers if I don't know the questions. Yes, ma'am.
Not as much a question, but more just a general comment. I feel like the material that you provided is really timely, and I'm excited to dig into your packet there.
Awesome. Well, you got my email address all over the place, so don't hesitate if you have any questions, okay?
Thank you.
Awesome. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes?
I'm good at the question part.
Yes,
The
you
follow-
are. You
it's
have
the
good
follow
questions.
through. In building competency or value, like we all are striving to do since we're here in a professional development setting, we're trying to climb the ladder for our own goals that you've guided us to set. How do you do that for yourself in balance?
Oh, and balance, that's a good one. You know, there is no perfect balance. There is no work-life balance, right? There's no 50-50. There's none, right? So your balance is different for you. So first of all, knowing that. But I would start with like the competence building is what goal do you want to achieve? Is there a success measure that you want to work towards? Is there a position? Is there a position down the road that you'd like to be at? How might you get there? So really kind of getting a little bit analytical and thinking about what it is you want, why you want it, why you feel like that's the right opportunity to you, and then you start to put your path together or your plan together. And this is where I would say to start to get really thoughtful about where you're spending time. Because there is so much stuff out there. I mean, there's things where I could do like 3 or 4 things a day at the same time. And there's only one I can't. There's only one of me. So I have to pick and choose. So you have to be thoughtful around what you're doing and does it make sense for what I want to achieve. Right? I could go have coffee with everybody because I do like to talk. I could go have coffee with everybody every single day. But is that really helping me with what I want to achieve? Right? I don't know. It might be, it might not. So understanding what you want and then developing a roadmap to work to get there is really, really important. But be thoughtful around it because so many things can take time. And my favorite sentence is no. Right? No is a complete sentence. So if something doesn't fit you, what you want to be, what you want to achieve, it's okay to say no. Now, you can say no in a nice way. You don't have to be mean, right? It can be no, this doesn't work for me right now. No, I don't have time. Because we have a certain amount of time. We are gifted a certain amount of time every single day, every single week, every single year. Think about how you use it. Thoughtful. I don't know if that answered the question at all, or if I completely danced around it. I feel
That
like
was
I
a pretty good
danced.
dance.
Okay, so
So-
it's pretty good?
No, thank you.
I think I danced around that one a little bit. But yeah, it really does come down to you thinking about what you want. And I will also say, for those that are career-minded, don't just think about a ladder, think about lateral. Because quite often when we can grow out, we can also grow up. Versus just what's my next step up, what's my next step up. I have a client that I worked with who was a finance person and a finance accounting person in an organization, and he took a lateral move into operations to learn the business where he really wanted to he thought he wanted to be a CFO. He was encouraged to take a lateral perspective and ended up being the CEO of the organization where he might have only been the CFO. Nothing wrong with CFO. I don't mean that in a not enough way. But he broadened horizons laterally. So think about how you can grow beyond the scope of a particular role. And I'm going to say this, this is tough for organizations to hear, but sometimes you have to go to grow. There's not always space in the organization you're in to grow up. So that's a tough one. It's a tough one for bosses because they hate to lose good employees. But there's only so many positions the higher one moves to move up. It's totally off topic, so I apologize. Continue the dance. Yes?
And yeah, I think sometimes we have to borrow our confidence from others. And so when I think the competency is there, and that's why you're chosen for the role, because somebody has seen that competency in you. You may not see it in yourself. So you have to borrow your confidence from somebody else, whether that's your boss or the person who hired you. You were hired because they believe you can do the job. And then when you get in the job, you don't feel like you can do the job. You don't have the confidence of it. But borrow that confidence from others that have already seen it in you.
And the way to borrow can be asking the question, why? Why do you think I was the right person for this role? How did that make sense for you?
I'm not
Right?
gonna read.
So there's ways to step into that borrowing perspective. Any other questions? Okay, I'll turn it over.
I have a comment that I really like the achievement inventory because I feel like it's a good way to track self-growth and count the small wins and kind
Totally.
of separate contentment from growth. So kind of like a building block.
It is a building block, right? And if we can keep this and track this, we can look back and see the momentum, the little small steps we might have made, and how they created big steps. Because you can see those things you've done, especially if they're impact related, right? Because that's what the boss cares about. They don't necessarily care about that you did it. They care about the impact, the profit, the return on investment, whatever that measurement is. Excellent. Thank you all.
Thank you, Leslie.